I have a stupid amount of hours in Dead by Daylight, so back when Dragon Ball The Breakers was first announced, I was excited to see what it brought to the table. Both are asymmetrical survival games, which, as any fan of the genre will tell you, is a really small space. While DBD sits at the top of the charts, Video Horror Society and Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Evil Dead games are some others you might know. You may also know that 2 of those games are no longer available to purchase and 1 is no longer being updated. It'd be a lie to call the genre saturated by any stretch of the imagination, and even more so to say that new entries tend to last long after release. Needless to say, I really wanted Dragon Ball The Breakers to succeed once it came out, and I beta tested for Breakers, and I honestly saw it going the same way. I just didn't get it at the time, and being awful at the combat didn't help either. For all intents and purposes, that would have been the last time I played the game, and despite occasionally thinking about it here and there, I never thought to give it another go. Either the game would be dead or not too fun as the Steam reviews indicated, or at the very least it would have stopped receiving regular updates. And then I saw that they'd added Goku Black a month ago and had introduced crossplay recently. Now I have a very limited knowledge of Dragon Ball, but I do know who Goku Black is, and the developers adding crossplay almost a year and a half after launch felt like an earnest attempt to do what's best for the game rather than just leaving it to go the way of others in the genre. Something about that managed to strike a note with me though, and so despite the many Steam reviews from early in the game's life telling me otherwise, and my own first impressions not being all that great, I decided to pick up the game whilst it was on sale. And to cut things short, it's good and has arguably gotten better since launch. I do want to delve a little into why the game reviewed poorly back in 2022, but before that it probably makes sense to go into what this game is. Despite being in the same genre as Dead by Daylight, it's a flavour significantly different to what you may be used to. Breakers is a 1 vs 7 game, where the objective as survivors is to escape via a time machine. You do this by finding and placing power keys, and these can be found throughout the maps, with a key corresponding to each area listed A through E. Keys are found in chests, and once found, a beacon of light will appear where it can be placed, and after interacting for a short period of time, the key will be set. After keys have been set in all zones, the Super Time Machine will appear in the middle zone, Area X. It'll power up slowly with an additional 5% base bonus for each key set, though you can interact with it to speed it up beyond that. When fully powered, all remaining survivors will win the game. But trying to stop them in this main objective is the Raider, who through a series of skills can pick off survivors one by one, each with their own individual benefits. Each survivor is afforded 1 down before the next kills them, and their teammates will need to revive them whilst they're down in the allotted time to ensure they don't die. As the Raider downs survivors and kills the NPC civilians that can be found throughout the map, they'll level up, changing between character or forms depending on which Raider you pick. Each form is generally an improvement on the last, and with each level up the Raider is afforded the ability to destroy an area of the map. If an area that hasn't had its key set yet is destroyed, the 5% startup bonus for the Super Time Machine is lost for that area. If the Super Time Machine is destroyed at all, or all survivors are killed, the Raider will be awarded a victory instead of the survivors. But that doesn't necessarily mean the game is over. In the event the Super Time Machine is destroyed, or when there's 3 or less players remaining before it spawns, the game doesn't end, even though at that point the Raider has won in the game's eyes. In these instances, you go into a sort of overtime, where the Escape Time Machine becomes available to survivors and can be called by interacting with beacons in set positions around the map. Survivors can use these to make an escape, technically still awarding them a win, albeit the weakest weighted type in the game. If once it's spawned in, the Raider manages to damage the Escape Time Machine before the player driving it uses it to escape, all remaining players will immediately lose. That said, survivors aren't entirely helpless against the Raider. You can enter into combat with the Raider by transforming into one of Dragon Ball's many characters. This is for a limited time, and taking damage reduces that time further, but it allows you to deal damage to the Raider and can buy time for your teammates to complete other objectives. Depleting the Raider's health bar in its entirety will also award survivors a win weighted the same as if they escape using the Super Time Machine. Now, you can get these transformations through change power, which can be found in chests and destroyed items, or by rescuing NPC survivors before the Raider gets to them. Each survivor starts at level 0 and can naturally reach Dragon Change level 3. This directly corresponds to the Raider's level, as being a higher level than the Raider will give you an edge, and being a lower level than them gives them an edge. Each tier of the Dragon Change is down to you for who you want to be, through use of the game's transfer system. You can be Goku for level 1, Trunks for level 2 and Vegeta for level 3, and all will have their own unique passive skills and super attacks. Dragon Change also has a notably long cooldown once it depletes, which means you can never remain on the aggressive for too long. After all, you are meant to be on the back foot. But of course, what would be a Dragon Ball game without the Dragon Balls? They can be found throughout the map, and collecting all 7 can grant either side a single wish from Shenron. For the survivors, this can be granting a level 4 Dragon Change to one player, or boosting the level of all players as Dragon Change by 1 up to a cap of 3. Now, for the Raider, this can either take the form of restoring health, going up a tier, or in Frieza's special case, becoming literally immortal. Needless to say, both sides will want to get their hands on all the Dragon Balls and stop the other side getting their hands on them. It's not that necessarily the second you get all of them the game is decided, but it can very often be the case that managing to get a wish in is able to shift the tide of the match. Now, while we're on the topic, level 4 Dragon Change can only be acquired in one other way beyond the Dragon Balls, and that's through Super Transfers. These tend to spawn when the survivor side is at a notable disadvantage, and interacting with one will grant the player who does a Dragon Change one level above their current rank up to a maximum of tier 4. It should also be noted that these types of Dragon Changes don't naturally deplete charge like usual, instead only losing charge when being hit. There are also active and passive skills that both sides can level up to try and give themselves an edge, and throughout each map there is a selection of items that can be used to your benefit. Some enhance your attacks, some are radars to find resources, and the top tier duo of Cooldown Drink and Senzu Beans allow you to decrease your Dragon Change cooldown and instantly revive yourself or someone else respectively. So just to recap, as survivors you want to do everything in your power to get the Super Time Machine to power up, or to kill the Raider, and as the Raider you want to try and kill as many people as possible, and destroy the Super Time Machine if it gets a chance to spawn in. Now I'm aware that that sounds leagues away from some of your more traditional asymmetrical games, but I really like Breakers' gameplay loop. As Survivor you're given multiple routes to victory and can tailor yourself to a certain role within the team. Depending on what you bring and equip or find throughout the match, you can be the designated key or Dragon Ball finder, you can be the medic or someone who specialises in stunning the killer, or you can always try and charge up your Dragon Change as quickly as possible so you can be an absolute powerhouse of combat. And every one of those roles contributes to the wider game in a way that kind of lets you play however you want, while still always managing to contribute. The teams are big enough to where there doesn't have to be these designated roles that need to be filled, because otherwise your chance of losing increases exponentially. Because where you might be leaving a little slack in how you play, there's 6 other people in there that are probably going to passively pick it up whilst you're unknowingly picking up someone else's. Survivor is fun, unpredictable, has a huge degree of freedom in how you can play it, and can change on a whim depending on what happens in the match. It's very often the case that the matchmaking or other systems in the game generally tend to ensure that victory or defeat isn't set in stone from second one, and that's just something I really gel with. And then there's Raider. I think even from the second the game was announced, people realised if there was going to be any highlight to playing Breakers, it would be playing as the Raider, and while I think Survivor is still more than fun, oh my lord! Objectively, in one way or another, you are going to kick ass and it is bloody fantastic. You spawn in, objective, kill. For roles with the survivors, you feel badass. Destroying a whole ass area of the map multiple times per match? You are goddamn right, it is hype. And that's just the Raider non-specific stuff. Each Raider has at least a few animations that either go immensely hard or call back to an event from the series, or sometimes both. You want to run around as this absolute creature, you're in business. Having the Goku Black and Zamasu fusion hit as the game is at its most intense? Check. In doubt whether the Ginyu Force pose after every kill? Don't worry, they do. Want to see a recreation of the shot where Frieza pretends it totally wasn't him who killed Broly's dad in order to make him go Super Saiyan? They have that. And while we're on the topic, so yes, you can absolutely hit the Frieza pose. Oh, and then I forget the part where, should you play an absolute blinder of a match as Vegeta, that you get to play as his Great Ape form in his 4th form. Because you can, and it's very, very damn cool. Playing Raider just generally tends to be hyped through and through, and while you can have some dud games, especially with the 2 weaker killers in the roster, on the whole it provides the exact sort of thrill you'd expect from being able to play as these iconic villains, while still providing the right amount of challenge to ensure you can never get too complacent going into a match. With both sides providing what I find to be a fun experience and twist on the genre as a whole, you can imagine my confusion when I remembered the game got mixed to bad reviews. But there is some merit in it. While you could argue the game needs some balance and definitely an anti-aliasing filter, I think where people take the greatest issue with Breakers is outside of the gameplay itself. See, in the whole world you can do many things. You can level up skills, buy cosmetics and new characters, check your battle pass and event progress, and acquire new transfers. And to cut straight to the chase, the game's paid but has monetization tactics that can err on the side of being a little too in your face. There's premium currency in the form of TP tokens, which you can use to buy certain clothing items, new raiders or survivor skins, or use them to pawn the gacha system, which is how you get new transfers. Now, part of this is nothing new. Dead by Daylight operates a similar system where you can work or pay for premium currency to acquire items, with I think the only items that you 100% need to pay for nowadays being collaboration items. Now, in Breakers you can technically do that, but they're a lot less forthcoming with TP tokens than you'd expect for a paid experience. Whilst the Battle Pass is free for all players, our classic Fall Guys, and both it and some limited time events will provide you with an injection of them, beyond that, the method of acquiring them is, not to mince words, very slow. You'll likely get them from ranking up your survival level through gathering match XP, of which can take a solid time per level, and whenever you do level up, your most common reward is going to be about 3 TP tokens. A Raider or Survivor skin costs 550. Now again, each season I estimate it's possible for you to net at least 550 tokens so you can get one of the new pieces of content, but once you're done with the pass, the grind to get any more is simply really slow to the point it's basically non-existent, and either pushes you to wait for the next season to start, or you could always pay to get what you want to get now. Granted, I really don't take too much issue with the pricing of TP tokens. I think they're fairly reasonable, all things considered, especially with the lower price given this is a paid game after all. And also having the option to just pay money to skip the grind and jump straight into the new content not only stops people from having to grind the game when they otherwise wouldn't have the time, but can also drive additional revenue into the development team's pockets, which I can appreciate. That said, I do still wish they were more forthcoming with TP tokens. Even if that was a small change, like increasing the base amount they reward from 3 to 5, I think it'd go a long way in just making the grind feel that little bit more rewarding. Although on that note, I think survival level caps at 300, so I don't know if you can grind them out beyond that. If anyone has the answer to that, feel free to let me know in the comments. Shockingly, my issues with TP tokens don't apply to where you'd think they'd be the worst. And that's in the gacha system. Because one spin costs 150 of them, and no one in their right mind is going to use them to pull when the game is as forthcoming with the amount of pulls it gives you as it is. See, throughout the event passes you'll get tickets which you can use to pull, and occasionally you might get a few from a big XP level milestone. Alongside that, the game has another currency called Zenny that you can accumulate from playing matches. Zenny can be used to buy most clothing items or to pull in the gacha, and while it can still take a little bit to save up for a 10 pull, unlike TP tokens it is grindable. You can also oddly grind tickets, as for each tier you earn above the final reward in the Battle Pass will award you 1 ticket, which is pretty neat. Doing a pull of 10 at once also guarantees you at least 1 transfer from a certain pool, of which will usually include a few featured 5 stars. But there's no pity system from what I can find. No set amount to pull before getting a 5 star, and no selector to get a transfer you want even beyond that amount. Which is an issue because survivor skills are tied to specific transfers. Hoping you don't get shafted by the gacha and get good skills from it is easily the worst part of the game, even if the average rate of acquiring a 5 star has hovered around a cumulative 5-ish% per pull whenever I've checked. You also can get transfers you've already got, and that will award you with the currency you use to level up your skills. And while I don't mind this for 3 and 4 stars, there have been times where I've gotten the exact same 5-star transfer I've already pulled, with the compensation in a currency I can't even use to pull again really not being that comparable. This is the flaw that drags down the rest of the game, as of course the best skills are likely going to be on the 5 stars. The only counterbalance in this is that there's a lot of non-awful starting or 3 or 4 star perks that you get that will more than help you out during a match. Better yet, survivor skins have perks tied to them also, and they're purchasable in the shop, meaning there's a guaranteed way to get some perks, even if that's the only way to get said perk. With how forthcoming they are with currency, sure, you might be able to get a few 5 stars, but the grind to get a specific skill you want can be a little nightmarish. It takes a while to get premium currency, and the gacha is unreliable when you want a specific skill. That alone would put some people off a paid game, and I do think some tweaks could be made to make those systems a little more palatable. But with the game losing a large chunk of its player base shortly after launch, a change was made that was arguably necessary to ensure that matchmaking continued to run smoothly, albeit to the frustration of players. Quite simply, you can queue for just survivor matches no issue, but you can't queue for just Raider anymore. I imagine this is because most people slightly prefer Raider, which means that lobbies would fill up at a snail's pace because of the 7-1 ratio each one needs. So to combat this, Flex Queue was introduced, where you'd play matches of Survivor and gain a priority point for each match completed. Once your priority was the highest out of anyone in the lobby, which nowadays is usually around 4, you'll be put back to 0 priority points and play a game as the Raider. Now, I don't mind Flex Queue, but a lot of people who would have been hoping to be Raider mains certainly would have. And then Flex Queue was overhauled. See, in the first season you could host lobbies with your friends in Flex Queue, meaning you could end up in matches where you could be going against your friends, which is pretty cool. But nowadays you can only set up a lobby in Survivor Queue, as that previous option was removed as it allegedly kept leading to teaming in some instances, which is a real shame. Nowadays you can only queue Flex Queue solo, although it is still technically possible to snipe into a friend's lobby if you coordinate it well enough. Custom lobbies are also offered, but only have an AI raider available, no AI survivors, meaning unless you fill it up fully and want an actual serious match against one another, the survivors will be at a disadvantage, so it's not exactly a replacement for the old flex queue either. And that brings us to now, where the game is still alive and holding steady with an average Steam player count of 400, which is arguably the best post-season launch retention of players the game has seen since following launch. With new maps, raiders and survivor stuff being added each season, the game is in its best state for new players ever, arguably. As now there's more content, it'll likely take more time for things to start feeling stale. And despite its flaws, which I can only help but hope are fixed at some point in the future, I still think it's a good game. When I've been tired of playing DBD but wanted a similar experience, I found myself gradually gravitating more towards Breakers, and I really do want to encourage more people to give the game a chance. While the game is nowhere near back at the heights of its launch week, with the introduction of crossplay recently, the game is far from dead, and I have a hunch so long as it stays the course it's on that we'll keep seeing new content, especially as many of the assets are able to be reused from the Xenoverse games, likely saving a fair chunk of money in the process. But the point still stands, we're in the lead up to Season 6, they've started teasing it, and I'm actually still really excited to see what they end up cooking up this time. If at any point throughout this video you found yourself wanting to give the game a try in spite of its flaws, you can frequently pick it up for cheap in sales, and I'd love to always hear what you guys think of the game yourselves. Whether you've been playing since launch or only just started, I do think there's something there with this game, and I want to do my part by trying to shine a more positive light on it to get it some well-deserved attention. And that's without me even touching on the very good sound direction this game has, the clear effort that was put into making the episode which introduced a few of the post-launch raiders, and the very good across-the-board voice acting. I don't know how much of this is taken from other media or was recorded specifically for this game, but a lot of it is good. Especially Trunks, which is really important because you hear a lot of him during this game, but you know what? I'm not sick of him, and I've been playing for 136 hours, so I consider that an achievement in and of itself. Even if I do hear him telling me to set power keys in my sleep. The gameplay is pretty solid, and I've been able to find some fun in it, even though I only have a basic understanding of the franchise it's based around. There is some muck that I think the developers could look into trying to clear up, but that hasn't stopped me from enjoying the game in spite of that. To me, Dragon Ball The Breakers is the most inventive spin I've seen on the asymmetrical genre in a long while. In the 3 months I've been playing the game, I've had way more fun than I ever could have expected picking up the game, especially after it left a sour taste in my mouth after I beta tested it. And that seems to be a shared experience. Whether it was in the comments of videos themselves, or on forums like Reddit for instance, there seems to be a general story that a lot of people picked the game up because they're expecting it to be bad, and that would be where they got their enjoyment, out of curiosity because they remember hearing about it but having it fall into irrelevance, or some other reason where they really didn't expect the game to be all that, to only then find themselves enjoying the game and coming back. I think there's something here, and I mean, Dimps is still updating the game, so clearly they have to see there's something here too, otherwise it wouldn't make more updates. And while I definitely think being able to lend your assets from the Xenoverse games is going to help keep costs down, I don't think that's the entire reason we're still getting updates. Either it's still profitable for them to make, or they think they'll be able to turn around their fortunes and make this game into a success, either of which I'm happy to see. Breakers has been able to stick around a good while now, outlasting a few of its contemporaries with arguably a fraction less of the attention. I think that there is something here, and I think that should the game experience an uptick in attention, popularity, what have you, that it will be able to stick around for years to come, and that we'd see a lot of popular changes being made as a result of the increased player base. Now this video is me kind of doing my part. While I don't think that single-handedly this video is going to revive the player base back to what it was at launch, regardless of the absurd reach this channel has at times, I do think that any small attention the game gets on social media will help push a wider move to improve the game's player numbers overall. Again, before playing the game I had only a surface level knowledge of Dragon Ball, and still do, but that hasn't stopped me getting my fair share of enjoyment out of the game. So if any of you at home are either interested in coming back to the game after a long breakup, even picking it up after this video, then I would highly recommend you to, because it is really a fun time. Dragon Ball The Breakers may not have been the game I was expecting to randomly fall in love with this year, but I have to say that after playing it for almost 150 hours now, I'm very happy that it was. Now, while I wouldn't exactly say this is a review sort of video, if any of you want a numerical rating for how I'd rate the game, I would say it's about a 6.75 out of 10. I know that might seem a little low considering how much I talked of its gameplay loop, but I do want to say it's with the caveat that it's one of the most fun 6.75 out of 10 games you could probably ever play. There are a lot of easy places where they could make improvements to significantly boost that rating, and I personally hope I get to see them made, but that's kind of where it sits in its current state. And I think that's going to bring it to the end of this video. So as always, I want to thank you all for watching. Feel free to let me know in the comments, have you played Breakers? Did you play it and give it up? Are you interested in coming back? Did this video inspire you to give it another chance? And if so, let me know all your opinions, Breakers related stuff and or otherwise in the comments, because I like reading them and we can have a little conversation. As always, likes and subscribes go a long way, and round about now there should be some stuff going on the end screen cards that can direct you to my Let's Play channel, this channel, and the playlist with all of my reviews and all video essay stuff. And that is going to be it for now, so until next time, with all that said and all that aside, thanks for watching guys, my name's been Remick and peace, out.